Chapter 3. After my grandmother passed away, I was overwhelmed by a deep sense of loss. I found myself constantly replaying the moments we had shared. Her absence left a void, and guilt settled heavily within me. I couldn't stop thinking about how I had not been able to help her the way she had once helped me. Tears would often fall when I remembered my illness and everything she had done for me. Yet in those same moments, I also felt something unexpected. There was a quiet but powerful sense of thankfulness for simply being alive. I began to believe that God must have spared me for a reason. Perhaps there was a greater plan for my life when all hope had once seemed lost. I continued doing well in school, but the growing political unrest in my country forced me to leave the city and return to the countryside. I was not able to resume my education until September of the following year. This time, rather than returning to the familiar town where I had once studied, I was beginning a new chapter in the United States of America. With that move came a new set of challenges. Adapting to life in the United States was difficult. I missed my friends, my extended family, and everything familiar. The sense of isolation was real. On the other hand, I was finally reunited with my father after 4 years apart. That reunion should have brought joy, but starting over in a place where everything was unfamiliar made it hard to celebrate. School in this new country was a frightening experience. I didn't speak English, and my sisters and I became easy targets for harassment. Other students often made fun of our cultural differences. At times they even tried to pick fights with us for no reason. When anger began to build inside me and I wanted to fight back, I would think of my grandmother. I pictured her calm presence and imagined her encouraging me to ignore their petty insults and focus on something greater. Inside the classroom, things were just as hard. During my first week, I didn't even understand my schedule. I ended up in the wrong classroom and was punished immediately. One of my bilingual teachers humiliated me in front of her class. She called me illiterate and a vagabond, along with other insults. I knew those words weren't true. I had been a good student in my home country. I went home upset and couldn't hold back my tears once I was alone in my room. But I didn't tell my parents what had happened. That evening, as I sat in silence, something shifted within me. Remembering my grandmother's words, I began to see my teacher's humiliation and low expectations as an opportunity to prove that I could overcome any challenge. My teacher divided the class into 2 groups. On the left side were the so-called illiterates. The other was for the students she considered capable. I was determined to move from the left side of the room to the right. I dedicated myself fully to my studies. I remembered everything my grandmother had taught me. If I could survive a near-death illness, then with God's help, I could succeed here too. I prayed every day for strength and clarity as I worked harder than ever. In time, the teacher who had once ridiculed me began to change her view. At a parent-teacher conference, she told my father that she had underestimated me. She now believed I was a great student. From that moment, she began to push me to aim higher. She encouraged me to enter the school spelling bee and to prepare for the entrance exam to one of the competitive exam high schools in Boston. I remember standing nervously in line the morning of the test, clutching my pencil and whispering a prayer, unsure if I belonged there. Against all odds, I was one of 6 students who were accepted. I had only been in the United States for less than 2 years, and this accomplishment felt nothing short of a miracle. I thought again of my grandmother and the strength she had passed down to me. The exam school was an entirely new world. I was now surrounded by advanced students, many of them native English speakers. It was my first time in regular non-bilingual classes, and the adjustment was draining. The pressure to succeed and fit in was constant. Still, I kept pushing forward. I looked for ways to give back. I tutored children at my church, mentored kids in my neighborhood, and helped with local cleanup efforts. Each time I served others, I felt thankful for the chance to be alive and to make a difference. Slowly, I began to understand what my grandmother had meant when she asked me to help others. Tears still came sometimes, especially when I remembered my grandmother and wished I could have done more for her. But these were not the same tears I had cried before. They were not tears of defeat. They were tears of victory. I had made it this far, and I knew she was still a big part of my success. Her voice stayed with me, reminding me to serve my family and help those in need. The more I gave of myself, the more meaning I found. I tutored not only at my church, but also at my high school. I wanted to give back to the community that had embraced me. By the time I reached my senior year in high school, I had conquered my fears and earned high marks. I also stood out in soccer, participated in the science and computer clubs, and continued serving my community whenever I could. I had found a deep well of motivation, one rooted in my grandmother's wisdom and my enduring faith in God. At the end of high school, I was offered a full scholarship and stipend to attend a university in another state. But I turned it down. I chose a college closer to home where I could remain near my family. I believed God had always guided my steps. Even during the darkest times, He had never failed me. I thought back to the hospital bed where I had once lain, uncertain if I would live. Now, years later, I was walking forward with purpose. God had saved me once before, and I trusted that He would carry me through the future as well. Whatever lay ahead, I knew I would walk forward with faith, guided by grandmother's memory and the purpose I had come to embrace.